You don't need to shout to be heard when your results are loud enough to echo through every room you enter. In a world obsessed with attention, the real winners are those who build in silence, letting their work speak volumes long before the world ever notices. Victory doesn't begin with applause or recognition. It starts in the quiet, unseen moments, when no one is watching, when there's no audience, and when the only competition is the voice inside your own head. This is where the real game is played, and it's where the outcome is decided. Most people believe that success is about outshining the competition, grabbing the spotlight, or making the loudest noise. But the truth is, the most powerful victories are forged in silence. They're built in the hours when everyone else is distracted, when the world is asleep, and when the only thing that matters is the standard you set for yourself. Before your name is ever known, before your work is ever celebrated, the real win happens in the mind. It's the discipline to keep going when no one is cheering, the focus to refine your craft when no one is watching, and the integrity to do what's right even when it's inconvenient. This is the secret that separates those who merely compete from those who dominate. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most dangerous. It's the one who's too busy building a world that others can't even survive in. The one who doesn't need to beat the competition because he's too focused on mastering himself. The man who wins is the one who refuses to be ruled by external pressure and instead chooses to build himself with internal precision. He doesn't chase validation or applause. He doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. His results are his voice, and they speak louder than any words ever could. So if you want to outplay your competition, don't start by watching them. Start by watching yourself. The real battlefield isn't out there, it's in here. It's in your habits, your focus, your choices, and your integrity when no one is looking. It's in how you handle discomfort, how you move when the crowd stops cheering, and how you keep building when nothing seems to be working. That's where the game is decided. That's where you win. Because when victory begins in silence, it becomes impossible to ignore when it finally arrives. And while the world is busy chasing attention, you'll be too busy building a legacy that speaks for itself. But that's just the beginning, because the real competition is only getting started. Most people spend their lives looking outward, convinced that the real battle is with the world around them. They obsess over what their competitors are doing, measure their progress against others, and waste precious energy trying to outshine someone else's highlight reel. But the truth is, the only battle that ever truly matters is the one you fight with yourself. The real competition isn't out there, it's in here, in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the standards you set when there's no one to impress, and in the discipline you enforce when the world is silent. It's easy to get caught up in the noise. Social media, industry trends, and the constant pressure to keep up can make it feel like you're always one step behind. But the elite know something the average never will: the real game is internal. While your competition is busy studying you, you're studying the process. While they chase attention, you're refining your craft. While they guess, you prepare. While they react, you predict. The difference isn't in who works harder for a moment, but in who works smarter, longer, and with more clarity, without ever needing a spotlight to do it. This is where most people lose before they even begin. They think the key to winning is to outwork, outhustle, or outshine everyone else. But the truth is, the man who wins is the one who can outlast everyone, not because he's stronger, but because he's more disciplined. He's mastered the art of showing up day after day, regardless of how he feels. He's built habits that don't depend on motivation, and he's created systems that don't crumble under pressure. His focus isn't scattered by what others are doing, because he knows the only race that matters is the one against his own potential. Ask yourself, how often do you let the actions of others dictate your next move? How much time do you spend watching, comparing, or reacting instead of building, refining, and executing? The truth is, most people are stuck trying to win a game they didn't even define. They wake up and react to whatever the world throws at them. They move with no direction, compete in industries they don't respect, and chase dreams they never truly wanted. And when it doesn't work, they point fingers, blame circumstances, and wonder why nothing changes. But not you. You've already understood the rule: define your game or you'll play someone else's forever. You don't win by entering the ring blind. You win by designing the rules around your strengths, your standards, and your systems. Once those are locked in, there's no one alive who can take from you what was built into your identity. Your systems become your weapon, and repetition is how you sharpen the blade. The competition thinks strength wins, but strength fades. Strategy doesn't. Discipline doesn't. Quiet consistency over time beats any burst of brilliance that burns out. So while your competitors are still looking for their next break, you're too busy building things that don't need luck. You show up with structure, and that structure doesn't ask for motivation or permission. It simply executes every single day. Because the man who can execute at a high level without emotion is the man who can outlast everyone. That's how you win this game, not by flash, not by flex, but by fortress. And as you keep building your internal fortress, you'll discover that the real separation happens not in public, but in the private victories you win over yourself. But the journey doesn't stop here, because the next step is to define the game you're truly meant to play. Most people spend their entire lives playing by rules they never chose, chasing goals they never questioned, and competing in games they never designed. They wake up each day reacting to the world, moving with the current, and hoping that somehow by following the crowd they'll find fulfillment. But the truth is, you can't win a game you didn't define. The scoreboard doesn't matter if you're playing on someone else's field. The applause is empty if it's for a performance you never wanted to give. And the worst part, most people don't even realize they're trapped in this cycle until it's too late. The elite, however, understand something different. They know that true power comes from defining your own game. They don't let the world dictate their standards, their pace, or their direction. Instead, they take the time to get clear on what matters most to them, what they value, what they're willing to sacrifice, and what they refuse to tolerate. They set their own rules, build their own systems, and create a vision so specific that imitation becomes impossible. When you define your own game, you stop competing for surface wins and start mastering the foundation. You become the architect of your own destiny, and suddenly the competition can't keep up, because they don't even know what you're building. Ask yourself, whose game are you playing? Are you chasing dreams that belong to you, or are you following a script handed to you by society, family, or the industry you're in? Are your standards truly your own, or are they borrowed from the people around you? The truth is, most people never pause long enough to ask these questions. They're too busy reacting, too busy comparing, too busy trying to fit in. But fitting in is the enemy of greatness. The man who wins is the one who stands apart, not because he's louder, but because he's more aligned. Defining your own game means taking full ownership of your path. It means refusing to compete in arenas you don't respect, declining opportunities that don't fit your vision, and saying no to distractions that don't serve your mission. It's about building systems that play to your strengths, setting standards that challenge you, and creating habits that reinforce your identity. When you do this, you stop being at the mercy of the market, the trends, or the opinions of others. You become unshakable because your foundation is built on truth, not on noise. This is where most people falter. They want the rewards of success, but they're unwilling to pay the price of clarity. They want to win, but they're afraid to step off the beaten path. But the man who defines his own game is different. He's willing to be misunderstood, to be underestimated, to be alone if that's what it takes to build something real. He knows that legacy isn't built by following the crowd, it's built by leading yourself. So if you want to create separation, start by defining your own game. Decide what you stand for, what you're building, and what you're no longer available for. Design your rules around your strengths, your standards, and your systems. And once those are locked in, there's no one alive who can take from you what was built into your identity. Because when you own the foundation, you own the structure. And when you own the structure, you become untouchable. But defining your game is just the beginning. The next step is to build the systems and habits that make your vision a reality, because strategy and structure, not just strength, are what create lasting separation. Once you've defined your own game, the next step is to build the systems that make winning inevitable. Most people think success is about bursts of energy, flashes of brilliance, or moments of inspiration. But the truth is, those moments are rare and they fade fast. What really separates the elite from the average is the ability to show up day after day with quiet consistency. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters over and over until it becomes second nature. Systems are the silent engines behind every lasting achievement. They're the routines, the checklists, the habits that run in the background, keeping you on track when motivation runs dry. The man who wins isn't the one who works the hardest for a week. He's the one who builds a process so strong that it carries him through months and years, even when the world isn't watching. While others are chasing the next big thing, he's refining what already works, sharpening his edge with every repetition. Repetition is how you sharpen the blade. It's how you turn skill into mastery and effort into excellence. Most people get bored with repetition. They crave novelty, they want excitement, and they jump from tactic to tactic, never sticking with anything long enough to see real results. But the disciplined know that mastery is built in the mundane. It's the willingness to do the same thing, the right thing again and again, even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when no one is clapping. That's how you build separation that can't be copied. Quiet consistency is your greatest weapon. It doesn't ask for attention, it doesn't need applause. It just keeps stacking results brick by brick day after day until the gap between you and your competition is too wide to cross. While others are looking for shortcuts, you're building a foundation that can't be shaken. While they're hopping for a breakthrough, you're manufacturing momentum through relentless execution. And when things get tough, when the results are slow, when the noise is loud, when the pressure rises, your systems keep you moving forward, unshaken and unbreakable. Ask yourself, what systems are you running every day? Are your habits designed to support your vision, or are they sabotaging your progress? Are you relying on motivation, or have you built routines that work even when you don't feel like it? The truth is, the man who can execute at a high level without emotion is the man who can outlast everyone. He doesn't need to feel inspired to do the work. He just does it because it's who he is. This is the difference between those who hope for success and those who expect it. The competition is still looking for their next break, still waiting for the perfect moment, still hopping for luck. But you're too busy building things that don't need luck. You show up with structure, and that structure doesn't ask how you feel, it just executes. Because the man who can execute with precision day after day is the man who becomes untouchable. So while your competitors are still searching for the secret, you're living it. You're refining your process, tightening your systems, and letting your results speak for themselves. And as you keep stacking those quiet wins, you'll find that the world starts to notice, not because you shouted, but because you built something that can't be ignored. But there's another level to this game, one that most never reach: mastering your emotions and staying calm under pressure. That's where the real edge is found. There's a level of the game that most people never even see, let alone master. It's not about how hard you work or how much you know, it's about how you handle pressure when everything is on the line. The most dangerous player in any room isn't the loudest or the flashiest, it's the one who doesn't flinch. The one who remains calm when the results are slow, who stays focused when the noise is loud, and who refuses to be pulled into battles that don't pay. This is the emotional economy of the elite, and it's what makes them unshakable. Most people are ruled by their emotions. They get rattled when things don't go their way. They panic when the market shifts, when critics get loud, or when the spotlight fades. Their attention is scattered, their energy is drained, and their decisions are driven by fear or frustration. But the man who wins at the highest level has trained himself to be different. He understands that not every reaction deserves his attention. He knows that the man who controls his focus controls his outcome. This kind of emotional discipline isn't built overnight. It's forged in the moments when you want to react, but you choose to remain still. When you want to defend yourself, but you let your results speak instead. When you want to chase every critic or respond to every comment, but you stay locked in on your mission. The world is full of people who are busy being busy, rushing to announce their arrival, desperate to be seen, eager to prove themselves. But the elite are different. They're building in silence, brick by brick, with no gaps, no cracks, and no breaks. Ask yourself, how often do you let your emotions dictate your actions? How much energy do you waste on things that don't move you forward? The truth is, the man who can stay calm under pressure is the one who outlasts everyone else. He doesn't get distracted by every wave of noise. He doesn't get drawn into wars that don't pay. He doesn't need to defend a strategy that already works, because he knows that results will always speak louder than the noise. This is what makes you unshakable. Not that life is easier for you, but that your mind is calmer than the chaos around you. You don't respond to every critic. You don't engage every distraction. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone because you're too busy building something that can't be ignored. Your attention is a currency, and you invest it with precision. You guard your mornings, protect your energy, and eliminate anything that doesn't serve your mission. While others panic, you've trained for peace under pressure. That's your edge. You don't need to be the loudest in the room, you just need to be the most focused. Because when the wave passes, and it always does, you're the one still standing. Not because you reacted, but because you remained. You remained faithful to your system, loyal to your vision, and unshakable in your principles. This is the emotional economy of the elite. It's not about being cold or detached. It's about being so locked in on your purpose that nothing can shake you. It's about building a fortress of focus, a system of habits, and a standard so high that anything beneath it becomes invisible to your attention. And as you master this level, you'll find that your presence becomes your proof, your process becomes your voice, and your standard becomes your separation. But there's still another layer to this game: the power of structure over noise, and how building with intention creates a legacy that outlasts any trend or tactic. That's where the next level of separation is found. In a world obsessed with noise, trends, and the next big thing, the true edge belongs to those who build with structure. Most people are swept up by the latest tactics, constantly changing direction and chasing whatever seems to be working for someone else. They're loud, they're visible, and they're always in motion, but motion isn't progress. The man who wins in the long run is the one who builds a process so strong, so intentional, that it becomes immune to the chaos around him. Structure is your silent advantage. It's the blueprint that keeps you moving forward when the world is spinning in circles. While others are distracted by every new opportunity, you're refining your systems. While they're busy trying to be seen, you're busy building something that can't be ignored. Structure doesn't scream for attention, it quietly stacks results one after another until the gap between you and everyone else is too wide to cross. Ask yourself how much of your day is spent reacting to the world and how much is spent executing a plan you designed. The truth is, most people are at the mercy of their environment. They let trends dictate their moves, let opinions shape their standards, and let distractions steal their time. But the elite operate differently. They filter their world with intention. They guard their mornings, protect their energy, and eliminate anything that doesn't serve the mission. Their time, their focus, their energy, these are not open to the public. They're locked behind discipline, secured by purpose, and deployed only toward their most precise objectives. This is why structure always wins. Flash fades, but structure multiplies. While others burn out chasing applause, you compound your results in silence. While they lose months to noise, you move in weeks with precision. Your process becomes your voice, your standard becomes your separation, and your presence becomes your proof. You don't need to announce your arrival, your work speaks for itself. The world will try to pull you in 100 different directions. There will always be a new tactic, a new trend, a new distraction. But when you have structure, you don't flinch, you don't pivot with every wind. You stay married to the process, refining it, tightening it, and letting it carry you through every season. This is how you build something permanent, not by chasing what's popular, but by doubling down on what works. Structure is what allows you to operate with efficiency when others are running on empty. It's what keeps you moving when motivation dies, what keeps you focused when the noise is loud, and what keeps you building when everyone else is looking for shortcuts. The man who can execute with structure day after day is the man who becomes untouchable. But here's the real secret. Structure isn't just about routines and checklists, it's about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to be told what to do because the standard is already set. It's about making excellence your default, not your exception. When your habits serve your vision and not your ego, you no longer need to prove anything. Your consistency speaks, your absence from mediocrity speaks. You are not better than others, you are different from them. Different in the way you treat your time, guard your energy, and approach difficulty. So while others are busy being busy, you're busy building a legacy. While they chase novelty, you double down on what works. While they jump from tactic to tactic, you install principles that can't be shaken. And as you keep stacking those invisible wins, you'll find that the world starts to notice, not because you shouted, but because you built something that can't be ignored. But there's still another level to this game. The transformation that happens when discipline becomes identity and success becomes inevitable. That's where the real separation is forged. There's a point in every journey where tactics and strategies are no longer enough. You can have the best systems, the most efficient routines, and the sharpest focus. But if your identity hasn't evolved, you'll always be fighting an uphill battle. This is the level where most people stall out. They keep tweaking their habits, searching for the next hack, but they never make the leap from doing to becoming. The truth is, real separation happens when discipline is no longer just something you do, it's who you are. Transformation begins the moment you stop seeing discipline as a chore and start seeing it as your default setting. It's when you no longer have to force yourself to show up, because showing up is simply what you do. It's when consistency isn't a struggle but a natural extension of your character. This is the shift that turns effort into ease and routine into rhythm. Suddenly, the things that used to feel hard, waking up early, saying no to distractions, pushing through discomfort, become automatic. You don't have to think about them because they're woven into the fabric of who you are. Ask yourself, who are you becoming through your habits? Are you reinforcing the identity of someone who is disciplined, focused, and unshakable? Or are you still clinging to the old story, the one that says you're inconsistent, easily distracted, or only motivated when things are easy? The man who wins at the highest level is the one who rewrites his story. He decides every day to become the kind of person who does what needs to be done, regardless of how he feels. This is where the real magic happens. When discipline becomes identity, success becomes inevitable. You no longer have to rely on willpower because your standards are set in stone. You don't rise and fall with your emotions because your actions are dictated by principle, not by mood. You don't need external validation because your self-worth is anchored in your own standards. The world can try to shake you, but you remain unmoved because you know exactly who you are. This transformation isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare or applause. It happens quietly in the choices you make when no one is watching. It's built in the lonely hours, the early mornings, the late nights, and the moments when quitting would be easier than continuing. It's forged in the fire of repetition, in the discipline of doing the right thing over and over until it becomes second nature. And here's the part most people miss. When you evolve your identity, everything else bends to match it. Your habits align, your results compound, and your presence becomes undeniable. People start to notice, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you've become someone who can't be ignored. You don't have to chase opportunities, they find you. You don't have to prove your worth, it's evident in everything you do. This is the ultimate separation. While others are still playing the game of tactics, you're playing the game of transformation. They copy moves, you become a new person. They tweak their strategy, you evolve your identity. And when identity shifts, your entire life shifts with it. Suddenly, discipline isn't hard, it's automatic. Consistency isn't a struggle, it's your default. Success isn't a surprise, it's inevitable. So as you continue on this journey, remember, the real edge isn't in what you do, but in who you become. The man who makes discipline his identity is the man who becomes unstoppable. And as you step into this new version of yourself, you'll find that the highest level of discipline is consistency, especially when it's boring, hard, or thankless. That's the unbreakable standard that creates legacy, and that's where the final stage of separation is forged. At the highest level, the difference between those who merely succeed and those who become legends is a single unbreakable standard. It's not about talent, luck, or even opportunity. It's about the relentless commitment to consistency, especially when it's boring, hard, or thankless. This is the standard that most people will never reach because it demands more than just effort. It demands identity, integrity, and an unwavering refusal to compromise. The unbreakable standard is forged in the invisible moments. It's the decision to show up early when no one is watching, to execute with precision when no one is clapping, and to keep building when the world is distracted by the next shiny thing. It's the quiet discipline of doing what needs to be done, not just once, but every single day until your actions become a force of nature. Most people are content with being good enough. They settle for average when excellence gets hard. But the man who sets an unbreakable standard refuses to lower his bar, no matter how tempting it is to coast. Ask yourself, what is your standard when no one is looking? Do you hold yourself to the same level of discipline in private as you do in public? The truth is, your real reputation is built in the hours when no one is watching. It's built in the choices you make when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're tempted to cut corners. The unbreakable standard is not about perfection, it's about refusing to negotiate with your own weakness. It's about making the hard choice again and again until it becomes who you are. This is what creates legacy. Not the big wins, not the public victories, but the hundreds of tiny decisions made with precision and purpose. The decision to keep going when quitting would be easier. The decision to be great when average would have been good enough. The decision to protect your process, your vision, and your energy, even when no one else understands why. These are not dramatic moments. They are invisible ones. But they build undeniable results, results that compound into respect, respect that turns into leverage, and leverage that makes your next move inevitable. The unbreakable standard is also what creates generational impact. When you refuse to compromise, you don't just change your own life, you set a new default for everyone who comes after you. Your discipline becomes your family's security, your structure becomes their foundation, your standard becomes the oxygen they breathe. This is bigger than you. It's about building something that outlives your emotion, your fear, and even your own ambition. But here's the real secret. The longer you work in silence, the louder your results become. You don't need to beg for validation. You don't need to chase applause. Your work becomes a signal for excellence, for relentless precision, for a level of discipline that can't be faked. People will try to copy your moves, but they can't replicate your process because your process was built in silence, forged in isolation, and refined in repetitions they were too impatient to stick with. So as you move forward, remember this: the man who masters consistency masters everything. Let others think you're obsessed. Let them say you're too intense. Let them call you different, because different is the reason you'll never be defeated. If they're not saying those things, you're too close to the average. Step away, step up, Step into the version of you that cannot be replaced, because what you're building is not just for today, it's for generations. Your discipline becomes your legacy, your standard becomes your separation, and your refusal to compromise becomes the reason you are unbreakable. This is the final stage not just of the journey but of the separation. The moment where effort transforms into inevitability and where the momentum you've built becomes a machine. And as you cement this legacy, you'll realize that you never needed to compete. You were always meant to dominate, silently and relentlessly. That's the power of the unbreakable standard, and that's how you become truly untouchable. There comes a point in every journey where the noise fades, the competition disappears, and all that's left is the quiet certainty of who you've become. This is the final transformation not just of your habits or your results but of your entire identity. You are no longer chasing success, you are embodying it. You are no longer fighting for attention, your presence alone commands respect. This is what it means to become unshakable. The unshakable man doesn't need to announce his arrival. He doesn't need to prove himself to anyone because his work, his discipline, and his results speak for him. He's not distracted by trends, not rattled by setbacks, and not tempted by shortcuts. He's built a life so rooted in structure, so aligned with his deepest values that nothing external can shake his foundation. While others are still searching for the next big thing, he's quietly building a legacy that will outlast every trend, every critic, and every storm. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped competing and started leading? If you stopped reacting to the world and started creating it? The truth is, the man who becomes unshakable is the one who understands that the real game was never about beating others. It was about mastering himself. He's learned that the only scoreboard that matters is the one he sets for himself, and the only standard worth chasing is the one that demands his very best every single day. This is the separation that can't be copied. It's not about being better than everyone else, it's about being so specific, so strategic, and so unshakably aligned with your mission that no one can even compete where you operate. You've become the standard, you've become the model, you've become the reminder that greatness doesn't shout, it proves. And in a world obsessed with noise, your silence becomes your signal. But here's the most powerful truth of all: the journey never really ends. The man who is unshakable knows that mastery is a lifelong pursuit. He doesn't relax just because he's ahead. He doesn't look back to see who's watching. He doesn't seek applause from people still chasing their first mile while he's building his second legacy. He stays locked in, stays consistent, and stays ruthless with his energy, because he knows that the man who masters consistency masters everything. Your discipline is now your default. Your structure is now your security. Your standard is now your separation, and your legacy is now inevitable. You don't need to chase momentum, you embody it. You don't need to seek greatness, you attract it. You don't need to compete for trophies, you build a life no one can steal. So as you stand at the end of this journey, remember, you didn't come this far to compete. You came to dominate silently and relentlessly. You came to become the engine, not the outcome. You came to build a life so unshakable that even the strongest storms can't move you. And now you've done it. You've become the man who is unbreakable, unshakable, and unstoppable, not because you shouted the loudest, but because you built the deepest. Let the world talk, you keep building, let them watch, you keep evolving, let them guess your next move. You already planned it 10 steps ago because you weren't chasing trophies, you were building a legacy. And now you are the standard, you are the model, you are the reminder that true greatness is quiet, relentless, and absolutely unshakable. This is your edge, this is your legacy, and this is how you win forever.